In the year 2048, Earth is suffering from overpopulation, and almost all natural resources have been used up. To solve this problem, the government selects 14 soldiers volunteer to undergo genetic modification so they can travel to Titan, Saturn's moon, and build a new human civilization there. The volunteers and their families are moved into a private neighborhood filled with luxurious and highly advanced homes. One of the volunteers is a former pilot named Rick. He arrives with his wife Abigail, who works as a doctor, and their son Lucas. The leader of the program, Dr. Collingwood, has great confidence in Rick because during his Air Force career, Rick survived being shot down and crossing the Syrian desert alone for 3 days. While injured and without food or water, Rick and Abigail join the program mainly for Lucas because they want him to have a better future. After all the volunteers finish moving in, they attend their first official meeting with Dr. Collingwood, who begins by explaining the purpose of the program. He says that humanity has damaged Earth, making Titan the best option for future survival because it is the only other place in the solar system with both an atmosphere and a primitive ecosystem. However, Titan is still extremely dangerous. The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, making it impossible to breathe, and the temperatures are far too cold for human life. Because changing Titan itself would be too difficult, scientists have decided to genetically modify humans so they can naturally adapt to Titan's harsh environment. One volunteer asks how the human body can accept such drastic genetic changes without rejecting them. Collingwood explains that clinical trials were successful, but he honestly admits that there is no guarantee every volunteer will survive the process. After the meeting, the volunteers receive special key cards that give them full access to the facility. They are then taken to the laboratory for the first of 300 injections they will receive over the next several weeks. Soon, Rick's family settles into a normal daily routine. Lucas attends school, Abigail manages the home, and whenever possible, she stays beside Rick during his treatments. The volunteers quickly become friends. Since they all live close to each other, they regularly hold barbecues and dinner parties. One day, the group hosts a special barbecue where everyone drinks more alcohol than usual because it is their final opportunity to consume alcohol before the program restrictions begin. Later that evening, Abigail feels dizzy from drinking too much, so Rick helps her upstairs. However, before they reach their room, Rick suddenly begins coughing heavily and struggles to breathe. Abigail brings him to bed, gives him medication, and stays by his side throughout the night to take care of him. Sometime later, Collingwood is extremely pleased with the volunteers' progress. Their DNA is adapting successfully, so the scientists decide to perform a major test. The volunteers are challenged to stay underwater without oxygen tanks for as long as possible. After 30 minutes, only Rick and a volunteer named Tally remain underwater. Tally manages to stay submerged for 39 minutes, but Rick seems completely comfortable and casually swims around the pool. Everyone is shocked because Rick moves through the water with incredible speed, almost like a dolphin rather than a human being. Several days later, the volunteers undergo their first major surgery. While Rick is in the operating room, one of the other wives, Rayanne, visits Abigail so their children can spend time together. Rayanne admits that she is terrified and feels her husband may not belong in the program. Abigail comforts her by reminding her that the volunteers are helping secure humanity's future and creating a better life for their children. Rick recovers from the surgery without any problems and returns home. Abigail is happy to see him healthy, but she cannot stop worrying after reading about possible side effects in the information manual they were given. Later that night, Abigail wakes up and finds Rick in the kitchen, pressing ice against his skin because he feels extremely hot. Abigail fills a larger container with cold water to help cool him down. Rick then turns it into a game. Both of them place their hands into the icy water. After a few minutes, Abigail can no longer tolerate the cold and pulls her hands out. Rick, however, feels perfectly comfortable and keeps his hands submerged. This confirms that he is losing his sensitivity to cold temperatures. The following morning, Rick and Abigail go jogging together. During the run, they stop at a scenic spot along the road that offers a beautiful view of the area. Looking out over the landscape, Rick expresses sadness that humanity was unable to save Earth. The volunteers continue facing increasingly difficult experiments. Some involve running while wearing masks that simulate Titan's atmosphere. Others require them to spend long periods swimming in freezing water. Many volunteers occasionally become exhausted and need to stop. Tally, however, refuses to quit even when the cold becomes almost unbearable. To help her cope, Rick teaches her how to meditate while underwater. One afternoon after testing ends, the volunteers are showering when Rick notices clumps of hair falling out. Tally tells him she is experiencing the same thing. Suddenly, screams echo through the facility. They rush over and discover one of the female volunteers suffering a violent seizure while vomiting blood. Doctors immediately try to save her, but despite their efforts, she dies, and it is the first death among the volunteers. Later, the volunteers gather to discuss the tragedy. Some become frightened that they might suffer the same fate, while others remind them that they knowingly accepted these risks when they joined the project. Although alcohol is forbidden, they decide to drink anyway to help deal with the stress. Meanwhile, Andrew, Tally's husband, helps Abigail prepare food in the kitchen. He tells her the story of how he met Tally and how hard he fought to win her love. Tally eventually joins them and jokingly points out that Andrew desperately wants to start a family. After Andrew leaves to bring dishes to the table, Tally confides in Abigail. She says Andrew believes this mission will satisfy her desire for adventure and eventually turn her into a more traditional wife. However, Tally admits she wants much more from life than that. Suddenly, loud screaming erupts from outside. Everyone rushes into the garden and finds Zane having a violent breakdown while attacking Rayen. The male volunteers quickly restrain him while Abigail takes Rayen away to safety. The following day, Dr. Freya visits the neighborhood and distributes additional medication. She explains that the medicine should prevent volunteers from developing the same severe symptoms that affected both the deceased volunteer and Zane. Later that evening, Rick suddenly vomits blood. Abigail tells him to rest and secretly collects a sample of his blood for examination. While moving around the house afterward, she discovers hidden cameras placed throughout the home and realizes the program's staff have been secretly monitoring their family every moment of every day. The next time Rick uses the swimming pool, he notices that his skin is beginning to peel away. That night, Abigail closely examines his skin and notices both the peeling and his continued hair loss. The following day, Abigail studies Rick's blood under a microscope. To her horror, she discovers that the blood itself is slowly turning black. Not long afterward, the volunteers undergo another major procedure. This surgery is designed to alter their eyes so they can see in darkness like cats. The operation is successful, but Rick must keep his eyes covered with bandages during recovery. One night, Abigail hears Rick groaning in pain. When she checks on him, she discovers that blood is leaking from his eyes. He is rushed back to the laboratory for another operation. Abigail returns home and starts packing some clothes for Rick. Suddenly, she hears sirens outside. When she goes out to see what is happening, she discovers that soldiers have surrounded Zane's house. The army prevents her from getting closer, but she still witnesses a mutated Zane throwing Rayen through a window with tremendous force, killing her instantly. The soldiers storm into the house and open fire on Zane, eventually killing him as well. Later, Abigail stays at the base to watch over Rick. Knowing that Collingwood will be busy dealing with the situation, she secretly takes Rick's access card and begins investigating on her own. Carefully avoiding security guards and cameras, Abigail sneaks into Collingwood's office and discovers confidential files that reveal the truth about the program. The volunteers are not simply being adapted for Titan. Their DNA is being combined with animal DNA to create a new stage of evolution. When Rick is finally allowed to return home, Collingwood accompanies him and explains that Rick's vision should return within 24 hours. According to him, the scientists underestimated how difficult it would be for the human brain to handle enhanced senses. At this point, Abigail demands to know the whole truth. Collingwood finally admits that animal DNA has been injected into all the volunteers. He says there is no guarantee the experiment will succeed and understands why she is worried. However, he reminds her that everyone involved knew there would be serious risks from the beginning. He also explains that Rick must undergo another procedure if he wants to survive. The following day, Rick removes the bandages from his eyes and discovers that his vision is completely restored. To hide the bald patches caused by hair loss, he shaves his entire head. Later that night, he realizes he can see perfectly in total darkness. Amazed by this new ability, he calls Collingwood and agrees to undergo the next procedure. While the volunteers are taken in for surgery, their families remain at home waiting. Unfortunately, the operation goes terribly wrong for most participants. One after another, the volunteers die from complications. In the end, only Rick and Tally survive the procedure and remain healthy. The next day, Andrew, Abigail, and Lucas visit Rick and Tally. They are shocked by what they see. The two survivors have transformed into strange mutated beings. They communicate through touch and low-frequency sounds that normal humans cannot hear. Rick places his hand against the glass separating him from his family. Seeing what he has become causes Abigail to break down in tears. Her sadness grows even worse when Collingwood hands her Rick's wedding ring. Although Rick and Tally are scheduled to leave for Titan in just a few days, they are temporarily allowed to stay at home. Rick struggles with simple tasks like putting on normal clothes. When Abigail tries to help him, he accidentally strikes her due to his new strength. He immediately tries to make sure she is okay, but Abigail is so frightened and pulls away from him. Rick spends most of his time in the swimming pool because he feels far more comfortable in water than inside the house. One evening, after Lucas has gone to bed, Abigail looks outside and notices Tally entering their garden. Her hand is covered in blood. Rick then approaches Tally, and they communicate using strange tentacles that extend from their fingers. At that exact moment, soldiers arrive in the neighborhood and discover Andrew dead in his shower. The military immediately begins moving toward Abigail's house. Realizing the danger, Abigail grabs Lucas and runs upstairs to hide. The soldiers fire tranquilizer darts at Tally. It takes many darts before she finally collapses. However, when the soldiers move closer, they realize she is still conscious. Tally suddenly attacks using her tentacles and kills one of the soldiers. The remaining soldiers immediately respond by shooting her repeatedly until she is dead. The soldiers then focus their attention on Rick. However, Rick easily overpowers several soldiers and knocks them unconscious. Eventually, he grabs the last soldier and attempts to drown him in the swimming pool. Abigail hears the struggle outside and rushes out to stop him. Horrified by what he has done, Rick immediately runs away. Colonel Solano orders all available personnel to search for Rick. Collingwood begs him not to kill Rick because he represents years of expensive scientific research. Solano ignores him and continues the hunt. Abigail quickly realizes where Rick must have gone. After making sure nobody is following her, she secretly leaves the base and heads toward the special scenic spot that she and Rick used to visit together. When she arrives, she finds Rick waiting there. Abigail slowly reaches out her hand to show that she is no longer afraid of him. Rick's tentacles gently wrap around her wrist. Then Abigail kisses him, proving that she still loves him despite everything that has happened. Their reunion is interrupted when military helicopters locate them. The soldiers use weapons to knock both of them unconscious and capture them. Abigail later wakes up at the base. Collingwood is sitting beside her, explaining that the Pentagon is preparing to shut down the entire project. Because of this, Rick must be sent to Titan immediately. Tally's death has proven that Earth's atmosphere either drives these new creatures insane or eventually kills them. Collingwood wants Abigail to inject him with a drug that erases Rick's memories. Abigail strongly objects, but Collingwood insists it is the only way to make Rick accept the journey to Titan. A soldier opens a drawer and hands Abigail a syringe, supposedly containing the drug. Abigail deliberately drops it onto the floor, forcing the soldier to bend down and pick it up. During this brief distraction, she secretly switches the contents and takes another syringe. Abigail enters Rick's enclosure. The two exchange an emotional look, then she injects him, pretending it is the memory-erasing drug. Rick immediately acts as if he has lost consciousness. After leaving the enclosure, Abigail asks Freya to accompany her. Meanwhile, a soldier enters to prepare Rick for transport, but Rick suddenly attacks and kills the soldier. Soldiers immediately open fire on Rick, but he escapes into the dark sections of the facility. Thanks to his enhanced night vision, he has a major advantage over them. Abigail rushes to find Lucas, while Freya leads them through an alternative escape route. Soon, they reunite with Rick, who has been badly wounded during his escape. Lucas and Abigail hug Rick tightly, showing him once again that they are not afraid of him. Suddenly, a large group of soldiers surrounds them. Collingwood orders Abigail and Freya to move away from Rick, warning that the soldiers may open fire. Abigail refuses to leave him, and Collingwood orders the soldiers to shoot. Before anyone fires, Colonel Solano steps forward and stops the order. He declares that he will not allow soldiers to shoot two unarmed women and an innocent child. He then points his gun directly at Collingwood. One by one, the other soldiers aim their weapons at Collingwood as well. Abigail immediately rushes to Rick's side and embraces him. The emotional connection helps Rick hold on to his most precious memories and his remaining humanity. Sometime later, Abigail and Freya become researchers working on a new project called Titan II. Unlike the original experiment, this program uses ethical scientific methods to help save humanity. Meanwhile, Rick is successfully sent to Titan. There, it is revealed that his transformed body has developed wings as he explores his new home. He spreads those wings and flies freely through the skies of Titan.